Hi everybody, we're at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the Gary Neville podcast with Jamie Carragher at the end of a game which finished Spurs 0, Manchester City 2, but around which the story is of course much bigger than that. It was at times a weird night, Gary, but it's very nearly a decisive night.
Very decisive. We knew obviously if City came here and won that the likelihood is now that they will finish the job off on Sunday and beat West Ham, but yeah, it wasn't without its complications. The game was strange in the first half completely. I mean, City were, for them, awful. In possession, every single one of them. It was almost as if they needed sort of a wake-up call. And so at half-time, we both said at half-time that we thought that would come and that they would come out in the second half very quick and do something, and they did, and they got a goal in front. But even then, they didn't kill the game off. They weren't at their very best. And, you know, they've had the difficulties here at this stadium, and Tottenham, they had some interesting moments.
How do you interpret Tottenham's performance, Jamie? Nobody can say they didn't play a proper game of football here.
They give Man City more problems than I've probably seen anybody give them for a long time in terms of the chances they created. And the fact we gave Ortega man of the match, Ortega has basically, just on tonight alone, has won them the Premier League title. There's obviously a lot's gone into that over the season. But when you look at this game, this wasn't about the goal from Haaland or the assist from De Bruyne. If he doesn't make those saves at 1-0, Arsenal will win the league. That's how close it is. And when I think of me a few years ago as a Liverpool fan watching Vincent Kompany put that shot in against Leicester, that is that moment now for Arsenal fans. That Son chance is that moment that the Arsenal fans will remember in 5, 10, 15 years' time. And even if they win a Premier League title in the next sort of 5 or 6 years, and they've got a great chance of doing that, they're a great team and a great manager, that chance will still haunt them.
Yeah, it was a time stood still moment. You literally just went, oh, and the right man is there.
Yeah.
The right man is there. And, you know, I not said it for a few years, but you always need your goalkeeper in a title running to produce a performance, to make a save. And Ortega, I nearly said at one point actually in the second half when he came on, is he the best number 2 in the league? But I thought it would probably be disrespectful to Ramsdale, obviously, who also is a very good number 2 to obviously Raya. But he's an outstanding number 2. And he came on in challenging circumstances. Edersons obviously with the concussion. It was an unbelievable moment, that one where Son went through. It really was. And wow, I mean, look, well done to City. You know, you need obviously everyone to contribute during the season. It's been ominous maybe for a couple of months or so. We were talking yesterday about that Oscar Bob goal at Newcastle away. I don't know when that was. It was an age ago, I know. But I was watching at home that night and thought, here we go again.
Well, that was the game, Gary, when De Bruyne came back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He played that pass and Bob danced around the goalkeeper.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about De Bruyne. He didn't have his best game today. If you actually take the assist away, probably one of his poorest games in the last couple of months. And listen, we had a laugh and a joke last night picking the sort of team of the seasons, and I put him in, and he's hardly played. He's actually second for assists this season in the Premier League. He's probably, I think he's played. I think that was his 17th game. And they wouldn't have been 17, 90 minutes. Well, obviously, he came off tonight, and he's still second on that list. I mean, he's a phenomenal footballer. I actually think Kevin De Bruyne, we think of the great foreign players who've come to our league. You think of Cantona, Zola, Bergkamp. Listen, I could just keep talking about them. David Silva, Ronaldo, all these players. I think the only person who might have the slight edge of an overseas player who's coming is Thierry Henry. I think there's them two. And there's the rest are underneath in terms of overseas players who've made the Premier League what it is over the last 15, 20 years. I do think he's above all those players, and it's probably him and Thierry Henry as the two best.
Talking of Thierry Henry, how would, if an Arsenal fan could be rational watching that, which you'd struggle to be if you're a really dyed-in-the-wool fan, how would an Arsenal fan have viewed that? How would you see that game through Arsenal eyes?
I'd hope Arsenal fans, you know, I think they could be a little bit annoyed about the chance maybe during the game, and that's just rivalry, and we see that time and time again. But I don't think they could ever be annoyed by the effort of the Tottenham team and the ability of the Tottenham team. I mean, you've already said it. That was a fantastic performance. They kept the ball off City for large parts of that first half. City couldn't get the ball. Now, teams don't do that. Now, they liked a bit of punch up front, But they had that punch in the second half. They created 3 or 4 really good moments. And look, that in another day would have been a performance. I would say if Tottenham had got a draw out of that game tonight, no one could have said that, no one could have denied them. Arsenal cannot have any complaints whatsoever. Mikel Arteta will not have any complaints about how Ange Postecoglou, who's doing that interview there now, and his men have approached this game tonight and gone about their business. They played really well.
I actually think it'll make it worse for an Arsenal fan, because at least if City had won this 2 or 3-0 and Tottenham hadn't had a goal and City dominated, were 2-0 up after half an hour, you could take your frustration out on top. You can't take your frustration out on Tottenham because they had the chances. They should have got something from the game. So, as an Arsenal fan, it's that extra punch to the ribs, isn't it, when you actually look at this game? And I'm seeing this Son chance again. I mean, I can't believe that. I mean, that is the title there. That moment there, right now, the title's gone from Arsenal to Manchester City.
And he does save it. Sometimes when someone goes through on goal, you see a goalkeeper, it just hits him because he's just there. He actually how he gets his leg down and it's almost splits.
By the way, it wasn't his only save either, was it?
No, but
he made a couple of big ones prior to that.
Kulusevski, wasn't it, a couple of times there?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable save. And look, for Arsenal, they're going to have to take their medicine, it looks like, in the next few days, and it's going to be really difficult for them, because when you come the whole way through a season of 10 months of work and you've done as well as they have, and you don't win it at the end. I mean, Liverpool have been there a number of times over the last 5 or 6 years with Jurgen Klopp and chasing this Pep Guardiola machine that is just unbelievable. And you think, what is the only way for Arsenal? They can look at, when they didn't beat City, I thought it was probably a moment whereby I think you've got to damage them. You've got to do something spectacular. And that's easier said than done because they're amazing. But when they didn't beat them, you just think...
It's the Villa game for me, though,
yeah,
guys.
Everyone will go to the Villa game. They will, but and look, rightly so. But you might have, in a normal run, you may have one mistake. And I just look at it and think, do they have to wait for Pep Guardiola to leave in the next year or two? Or do they just have to somehow get that extra 2 points from somewhere? But you can't talk about that because Arsenal have been amazing in this season. The amount of points they've amassed is fantastic.
I think that's an interesting point, that, because I think the job Mikel Arteta has done is absolutely fantastic. And people say he's spent a lot of money. He has. But the biggest indicator of where someone finishes in the league is the wage bill. And when you actually look at the wage bill of Manchester City and Liverpool, are not far behind Manchester City compared to what Arsenal's are, it's a massive gulf. And that, more often than not, that decides where the Premier League title goes. So you might have a situation where you might have to wait for Pep Guardiola to go. But if Mikel Arteta doesn't win anything again next season, that might be 4 seasons without any trophy. But for me, I'd almost think he's a top manager. We know we've got, one of the best. We might have to wait till Pep goes. Don't do anything silly. Don't panic. This guy knows what he's doing. We've seen that in the last couple of years, and you just got to hang on in there.
Listen, we'll come back to the final day because that's the natural place to end the conversation. But before we do that, perhaps you guys owe a word to Aston Villa, who've qualified for the Champions League tonight.
Yeah, we almost last night sort of pay tribute to their achievements, so we don't need to go too far into it, but we said it during commentary. It's an amazing achievement for Unai Emery to get into 4th place ahead of all those other clubs that have spent all that money, not just in the last 12 to 18 months, 2 years. Those clubs have been amassing and accumulating players for billions, a lot of them over the last 5-6 years. And for Aston Villa to be where they are, where in their recent history they've been relegated, they've found themselves in relegation scraps in the Premier League in the last 4 or 5 years. It's an amazing achievement and well done to them. It's a great club and they deserve what they've got this season.
Listen, Aston Villa are one of the few clubs in England who've won the European Cup. There's not that many. And, when we go to Villa Park, we say how much we love, you love the sort of the stadium. But there's that famous banner, isn't there, in the end opposite the Holt end. Come on, Peter, give me the line.
Oh, Peter Witt's goal. Gary Shaw's involved, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry for putting on your spot there.
No. The great Brian Moore, who was a wonderful commentator with a gorgeous, gorgeous baritone voice. And you can hear him say Peter Witt. And actually, Peter Witt's been quite featured in the English media recently with Villa doing so well, a great old centre forward. But
it was a brilliant atmosphere last night in terms of the 3-3, and you think of the European nights there, I think they'd be pretty special because the excitement and enthusiasm for a Villa fan who's probably never dreamed, and let's not forget the Villa fans who remember sort of winning the European Cup in the early 80s. I mean, it's not even the last generation, it's 2 or 3 generations of Villa fans who've come after that who have got no recollection of that really. So for them, they'd never believed their club could be in the Champions League. So the atmosphere at Villa Park and being in that Holt end with them attacking there, maybe the second half of a big European tie, I think it'll be the place to be.
That would be fantastic. So listen, the final day, I'm slightly worried that we've given it to City. There must be some jeopardy. You know, they're playing West Ham United. West Ham United are a Premier League football team. You know, they're best friends, by the way, with Declan Rice.
Yeah, I mean,
and David Moyes is very good friends with Mikel Arteta, obviously. We will start to build a narrative come Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
But it feels very difficult to do that right now in the sense of what's just happened tonight.
Well, actually, David Moyes' interview after the last game, I think against Luton at home, he said, you know, West Ham would find it tough to beat Manchester City's under-14s. So that doesn't bode well for Arsenal supporters. But listen, anything can happen in a football game. We've seen strange things happen. Maybe the only way something could happen, I think, if Man City got a player sent off at 0-0. I can't see City anyway not winning that game 11v11. So something really freakish would have to happen. And I think most Arsenal fans tonight will be going to bed thinking the title's gone.
Yeah, they don't make mistakes. I mean, I was there on that day when Aguero scored that goal 11 years ago, whatever it was, and QPR just sort of like it was unbelievable to be in that stadium and see how QPR had done. But that was City's first title, and they were nowhere near as sort of as efficient and mature, as knowledgeable as they are now, and I just don't see any way in which Manchester City are not going to go and finish the job on Sunday, and that we won't be talking over a fourth Manchester City trophy walk. It's like, I mean, will you be there Sunday? And they'll put me on again. I think it's almost like sort of punishment for sort of like the years gone by. And here's Kevin De Bruyne, what a player, and Phil Foden with his 18th title at the age of 15. And it's like, get my lines ready.
Well, they're certainly practiced at it, aren't they? Walking up that blue carpet of theirs and picking it up. And they probably will, but not certainly.
No.
Not certainly. And
No.
Arsenal have a game against Everton as well.
Yeah.
Which they have to.
One thing is,
themselves know.
Arsenal, do your job. Just make sure you get the because it does count. They do count these things. When you look back and you see a title win by 1 point or 4 points or whatever, it does count psychologically. You think, right, we were close to them, and get as close as you can and make sure you finish the season well. Arsenal obviously got a difficult game on Sunday against Everton. They just need to make sure they do their job.
There we go. That's it. That's where we're at. 5 days left, and we'll know for sure.